This is our Goldie. It was built in 1964, and it's in reasonably good shape. We're fairly happy with it, and it came to us from California, and before you asked me, we paid $150 for it, and believe it's worth every penny. But there are some problems, and if you will go to the blackboard and scroll down, you will see that I put a little piece of a 5-page paper there on a checklist of what to look for when you're out there buying a Mark V, and it's reasonably complete. It's reasonably complete, and I'm going to use it on this part of the presentation. We're just going to go down here, and I'll explain the reason behind some of these things. The Mark V is a unique machine in several different ways. For one way is that it is the only stationary power tool and the only other durable good besides airplanes that is meant to last forever. If you own an old, say, Tiger Moth or an old Cessna or one of those old beautiful Fairchilds, you know that the FAA considers those things eternal. They are made to swap the pieces and parts out and keep them flying for the rest of your days and far beyond. The Shopsmith is a little different. Not only is it designed to last for a long time, it is designed so that we can incorporate every improvement that we ever make into even the oldest of these Mark Vs, so that no matter what Mark V you buy off of what junk heap, we can help you restore that to and then upgrade it to where it will work just as well as one that's made new. It may take you some work, it may take you more money than it would cost to buy it new, but you can do it. The Shopsmith has a long and wonderful history. It starts out in 1947 when a group of engineers working in San Diego building ships for the Navy decided that they better get themselves another job before the Navy gave them the heave-ho, because after all, World War II was over. In the midst of that group of engineers was Dr. Hans Goldschmidt, a graduate of the University of Berlin who had escaped the Holocaust in Germany and had come over to build boats for us, although he couldn't get a job right away, because at the time that he came over, the Depression was still going on, and he was reduced to making wood handicrafts. And working in his little apartment, he wished that he had some way to fit more machinery into that teeny tiny cramped space. And he conceived, voila, the answer to the problem, which was the 5-in-1 Shopsmith woodworking system. The Mark V didn't spring full-blown from his inspiration, however. The first machine that Magna Engineering, as this group of engineers called themselves, first put out was the 10E. 10, I suppose, stood for Model 10, and the E stood for experimental, but they decided to sell it anyway. They made about 300 of those and then got their market feet and put out another model called the 10ER. The E stood for experimental and the R stood for revised. That was the mainstay of Magna Engineering for 6 years. And while they accumulated more and more experience and listened to their consumers and what they want, they completely redesigned the system. And in 1953 came out with the very first Mark V. The 5 obviously refers to the 5-in-1 woodworking system, the sawing, sanding, drilling, boring, and turning. The Mark, I don't know exactly what that was for, except that it was way cool back then in those Buck Rogers days. So the Mark V has looked from that day to this about like what you see here. There have been some changes over the years, some of them quite important, but the framework remains the same, and if you need to, you can upgrade these things at any time. The trick in looking for one of these things is not that you won't be able to upgrade it, but you want to find one that's got as many of the features on it that you feel you need, so you have to spend as little money as possible upgrading it. And that's what I'm going to walk you through now. The Shopsmith is actually just an overgrown erector set that can be put together in a lot of different configurations. And because of that, it's modular. And there are 4 important modules or subsystems in the machine. The first, in the heart of the machine, is the headstock. This is where the motor is, the on-off switch, speed changer, the PTOs, power takeoffs, the quill. All the good stuff happens right here in the headstock. Next, we have the table and the carriage. If this drives the saw, this is where the sawing is done. Both the table carriage system and the headstock sit on a frame. This happens to be a tubular frame. There are 4 tubes connected to some other pieces and parts that stand on some legs. Then finally, the 4th component, and in some ways the most important, are the accessories. In addition to what you see here, you have all sorts of little things like this extension table over here, and sanding discs, and an arbor, and on and on and on and on to help you do the things that you want to do on your Mark V. And really, without those pieces, these pieces would be useless. So you want to make sure that when you go out and you buy a Mark V, you get as many of these pieces as you can possibly pull together. And as you'll see, some people are so intent on pulling pieces together, they get things included that don't need to be or deserve to be. Let's take these components one at a time. Let's go for the headstock. Now, the headstock has the motor. The motor sits in the base or down below the headstock. It is connected from the motor to the idler shaft, which is right here in the center of the headstock by a V-belt. On the idler shaft and on the shaft that comes out of the motor, there are some floating sheaves that go back and forth. And as one set of sheaves comes close together, the other set of sheaves spreads apart, and this is what allows you to change the speeds by turning this dial right here. There's also a switch to turn the motor on and off. The top spindle is connected to the idler shaft by a flat belt, which we'll get to in a minute, and it has 2 PTOs, one at the front where the quill is, that's the quill, it goes in and out, and one here at the back which doesn't go in and out but just stays there. There are some nice little accoutrements on the quill to lock it down and be able to stop it at a certain depth, so that it only, I'm going to set it right now so it'll only go out an inch, and then it stops. Cool, huh? You have a lock over here, which when you turn that, compresses 2 wedges in against the tubes and locks the headstock in place. That's it in a nutshell. Now, the thing that you need to know, the very first thing that you need to know as you go shopping for these things is if you are inexperienced with the Mark V, you never, ever turn the speed changer without the Mark V running. The reason for that is you can break something, and if the person you're buying from is following the tried and true "you break it, you bought it" rule, you could find yourself buying a Shopsmith in need of a new speed changer. So, if you have to get somebody to spin this while you spin this up or down, when we got this Shopsmith, it was apparent to us that somebody had been turning the speed changer without running the Shopsmith. And as you can see, this thing is completely useless at this point, and this is the first repair that we're going to have to do. Now, when you're there with the Shopsmith, pop the back cover off. There's two screws, one here and one here, which I've already removed. And you take this thing off and slide it that way, and you can then see some of this mechanism that I'm talking about. There, for example, are the floating sheaves on the motor, a little bit up here, and if you follow there where my finger is, I'm touching, but you can't quite see the floating sheaves on the idler shaft. Then the idler shaft is connected to the upper shaft by this flat belt. There we go. It's all there, folks, in glowing brown and tan. The belt, if you look at this flat belt has little ridges on it. This is a poly V belt, and that is a good thing. When Shopsmiths were originally made, they had a belt on it with just teeth. It was called a Gilmer Belt, and the Gilmer Belt is it's fairly unforgiving. If it actually jams, the Gilmer Belt will stop, or the machine will tear a couple teeth off the Gilmer Belt. And that sudden jerk, if there's a jam, could ruin some things that are on the inside of the machine. You want the poly V belt. It's a good thing. If you don't get it, you want to upgrade to it. It's well worth it, and you'll have a lot less maintenance to do over the years because bad things do happen. The motor on the Mark V, if it was made before 1962, it is probably a 3/4 horsepower motor, and that is adequate, but it's a little underpowered. The machine is going to bog down on you. You're going to have to be more concerned with feed rate than you would be than if you had what came after 1962, which is the 1 1/8 horsepower motors. Those are good motors, and both of them. We rarely have a problem with them. Most people who have had both like the 1 1/8 a little bit more. I have had both, and I can say that there is some value to that extra little bit of oomph that you get with the 1 1/8 horsepower. At the back of this headstock, and I'm going to turn this around. Kind of like a giant fingernail scratching along a blackboard, isn't it? Okay, there is an access hole right here. That access hole is covered by a medallion that says Shopsmith. Over on the older one, or the newer one that we look for, this one right here, you can see this medallion is nice and big. This one is a little bit smaller. As time has gone on, we keep making these holes bigger and bigger because they are very important. This is where you get in to oil the floating sheaves and do other maintenance procedures. Sad to say, the very first headstocks that were made in 1953, 54, and early 1955 were sandcast without these access holes. Good to know, guys, because they are a pain in the neck to maintain without them. You don't have to completely panic if you're looking at buying a 1954 Shopsmith. We can cut an access hole for you and fit it with one of the big medallions. But if you can avoid the expense, do so. Everything from mid-1955 on has this popped in. For a while we had this spring-mounted little medallion. It goes in here. Let's see if I can. You have to have a screwdriver to get it back in. You sort of put the spring there and push down, and it pops in. The newer one, you just loosen a little screw right here, and it swings up and out of the way. A little bit more convenient, and a little bit bigger access. Let's see. Access hole. Okay, quill. Let's talk about the quill. That's important. Quills made before 1984 had just a single bearing. It's very likely that this quill here has just one bearing, and I'll show you. Let's see if I can get that quill out of there real quickly. I think I can. With a single bearing, the quill has up to about 5 thousandths run out, and that's quite a bit. That means you get a lot of wobble in that drill bit that you don't want. After 1984, we began to manufacture these quills with two bearings. Okay, and the second bearing reduced the wobble to 1/1000th, and again they got much more accurate and ran a lot smoother. This one, you can tell whether it's a one bearing or two bearing quill simply by taking a long tool like a screwdriver or this Allen wrench and poking down there, and see that? It doesn't go down past there. The second bearing is down about 3 inches, okay? And if it's in there, then you've got a two bearing quill. So at some point, this is older, but at some point this has been updated to have that second bearing, although I'm going to tell you, this bearing, I can tell you right now, the second bearing is in bad need of replacement. It is frozen, and the little balls are leaking out. Everything is wrong in there. Drew and I just keep discovering all sorts of stuff with this machine. You will too with yours. There'll be bad discoveries and good discoveries. Just remember, there's nothing so there can be so much wrong with these things that we can't help you fix them. Okay, there we go. Get that back in. Now, another thing that you want to do when you're adjusting or when you're looking at this quill is you want to make sure that there is enough that the quill actually retracts itself. Okay, there is some spring resistance as I pull this quill out, and it retracts itself back in. As a matter of fact, that's a healthy spring in this one. That's a good thing. If you find that you actually have to turn the lever in order to get the quill back in, that means that either the spring is broken or it is somehow off the tab there, and it needs to be where the spring hooks on to the little drum that it's in. That needs to be taken care of. Usually, that just means taking it apart. Doesn't mean replacing it. The quill and let's see some other things. Oh, the switch. For most of the time that this thing has been manufactured, we've had a toggle switch like this right here. In 1999, we went to a safety switch, a rocker switch with a little red removable button in the middle, right here, and that you can take out. And when this little red key is out, you cannot turn the Mark V on. Great way to prevent your grandkids from getting hurt if you're worried about that sort of thing. Also, these little red buttons are wonderful. I mean, the dogs love them. They'll chew them up in a heartbeat. Shop gremlins steal them. You can keep dozens of people entertained while you're looking for these things. The toggle switches, people that have them like them. Generally, they wear out in about 102 years. Some of them, not that much, but some of them have gone on for as long as 30, 35 years. I know one person who has a 1958 Mark V who still has the original toggle switch on it, and it's still perfect. This looks like the original toggle switch. We have not turned this on yet because the sheaves may be frozen and the speed changer is all boogered up, but it sounds like it could work. We'll see that next session. If you bought a Mark V that was made after 1973, you'll notice that there are two little holes drilled right here, so you can put a padlock through there and lock this toggle switch, so that if you need to, you can prevent the kids from messing with your machine. Okay, let's leave the headstock and go on to the table and the carriage. Now, the table on the older Mark V's is fairly small. It's 14 by 18. And that probably is what people like the least about these older machines. These things do provide minimal support for large operations. All Mark V's came with an extension table so you could get more support out there, but the larger tables that we now have available really are better. In I believe it was 85. Was it 85? Let's see, the tables. Hard to keep all of this in my head, yes. In 1985, we began making the Model 510. This became designated as the Model 500, and the Model 510 had a much larger table, 17.5 by 24. There were some other changes that were important, and I'm going to take this table out and then take the newer table and show you. Now, all the tables pivot. You have two. They're supported on two posts, and they pivot through 135 degrees. 45 degrees to the right, 90 degrees to the left. The posts are tied together by a tie bar, and on the older tables, the smaller tables, there is a single trunnion on the front, and if you tighten this lock, it locks the table at an angle. When we went to the larger tables, see how much more space there is on the larger tables. We kept much of the system. The table is still mounted on two posts. It pivots through 135 degrees, but now there are two trunnions, so that when you lock this, you lock it both at the front and the back. It is much more stable than the old one trunnion system. Believe me when I say that because of size and stability, one of the first things that you should consider for your older Mark V is somehow enlarging the table, or purchasing a 510, 520 table system for it. Move this back again. Now, the table itself mounts in this carriage, and on the, let me turn this around so you can see, On the back side of these posts are racks, and on the inside of the carriage are pinions, and that's what raises and lowers the table. You want to make sure that these teeth are all in good shape. The ones on the post tend to be. There's not much you can do to destroy those, but the pinions themselves tend to have some wear and tear. So turn those around and check the pinions on all of the teeth. These are in remarkably good condition, so we won't have to worry about those. The carriage has some wedge locks here. You turn this knob right there, and these two wedges come in and lock the carriage in place, much the same as in the headstock. And you want to make sure that these things operate properly. If you should tighten these up, you tighten it up till it's snug, and then a quarter past snug, or maybe an eighth, and then loosen it. If you hear a pop or the thing jams in place like this has, that probably indicates, there we go, that the wedge locks are worn. The wedge lock, each of the locks has one flat surface, two flat surfaces that come together and wedge themselves against the round weight tubes. Now you would expect that as they wear in and become somewhat concave, that they would actually work better because there's more surface in contact. But this is absolutely not true. The more concave they become, the more persnickety they are, the harder it is to get them loose, and the more and more you feel like picking up the machine and throwing it across the room when you try to move the table or the headstock. So check the wedge locks. Even if everything else is running, these make the Mark V experience a whole lot better if they're in good repair. Now, let's talk about the frame itself. The Mark V. There we go. The Mark V components rest on a tubular frame. There are two legs, one on either side. This is a headrest. There is a headrest tie bar here. You have a base here with a pivoting arm. That's so you can stand the Mark V up in vertical position or in a horizontal position. The bench tubes, which are the two lower tubes, never leave horizontal. The weight tubes can be horizontal or vertical. There haven't been many changes made to the frame itself. It's good, it's functional, but there's just not much to do. But there are a few things that you need to watch out for. One is mismatched hardware. When Drew and I got this one, it was all put together with carriage bolts. Gone were the regular bolts that had put it together. Another thing that is often missing is this little thing over here. This is the arm lock. This locks the weight tubes when they're up in the vertical position. And see, that'll back right out. And once it's out, it's gone. A shop gremlin is going to capture this as the minute you set that down. So make sure that it's got the arm lock when you look at these things. These legs, these are all in fairly good condition. Legs are stronger than you think they are just looking at them. They're stamped steel, but I have rarely seen a used Shopsmith that has dented legs. The real thing to watch out for on the frame when you're looking for these things is the condition of the weight tubes. They could be badly rusted and pitted. They also can be dented. If this has been used by somebody who has over-tightened the carriage lock and the headstock lock, there could be a lot of dents along the weight tubes. The surfaces of these tubes should be extremely smooth in order to get the type of movement that you're after. There's a lot of corrosion on this. It's all surface corrosion, but as you can see, it takes some effort to slide that carriage back and forth. Once Drew and I work on this with a little crocus cloth, an abrasive cloth that has a very fine abrasive in it, these things will slide much easier. On this side of the Mark V, down here, we found that there has been some rust and pitting. Pitting is when the rust actually digs into the metal and creates little pores that get deeper and deeper with age as more and more of the steel oxidizes. Pitting is a problem. It does make it rougher as long as it's not too deep. It's not something that you can't solve with a little bit of TLC and some wax. Can you fill the pits? Yes, you can. You can have these tubes copper plated. The copper will fill the pits. Then you sand off everything, all the copper except for what's in the pits, and then you have it nickel plated, and then chrome on top of that, and then you've got yourself a way tubes to die for. Unfortunately, that costs a lot of money. It is actually cheaper than to buy yourself a new set of tubes than it is to. Yes, you can have that piece of wood now. It is actually cheaper to buy yourself a new set of tubes than it is to have even just the copper plating done. You'll find as you look at the various machines that they were painted various colors. Sometimes the tubes were painted, sometimes they were plated. The top tubes, the way tubes, were always plated. The bottom tubes on this particular Browning were painted a silvery color. The oldest machines are a two-tone green, then they went to a two-tone brown, then they went to a smooth gray, and finally now they're into a rough gray look. And of course then, every now and then you'll find an owner like me who likes to decorate his machine with things like flames and other accoutrements that you can find at truck stops. The frame, the frame itself should be solid. One last thing to watch out for: these locks right here on the edge. This is what holds your extension tables in. Sometimes one or more of these is missing. They do come out. You can replace them, but it's one expense that you may not want to deal with. Finally, and the most important thing, and the one where is probably going to give you the most fits as you look for used Mark V's, is what accessories does it come with. Let's talk about the minimal accessories for each one of the modes. First of all, there's saw. Obviously, you need a saw blade. The older saw blades, I wouldn't worry if your Mark V doesn't come with one. The newer saw blades are much better than anything that we have ever sold before. The new stuff that we get from Amana is made in Germany. It's industrial quality, absolutely superb blades. You may, even if if your machine comes with a saw blade, you'll want to invest in one of these. In addition to the saw blade, you will need an arbor so you can mount the saw blade on the quill. These are about $25 a piece right now as I'm talking to you this minute, so they're not cheap, and you'll probably want one of these for each of the saw blades that you keep on hand, so you don't have to keep changing that out. In addition to the arbor, your machine should also come with an Arbor Wrench. All our machines were provided with an Arbor Wrench, and the fact is that you need two, and we've always provided you with one. So even if you get one of these machines with an Arbor Wrench, you're probably going to want another one. In addition to those, you need an upper and a lower saw guard. Now here, this is something to consider. You will be shown a lot of gizmos that people will swear came with their Mark V. And if you suspect that it didn't, it probably didn't. The person who sold us this was absolutely, positively convinced that this was the lower saw guard. This is actually the upper saw guard to a DeWalt radial arm saw. I happen to know because I have one. It has nothing to do with the Mark V, and neither did a couple of other things in the package that came to us. But if any of you out there own an old DeWalt, call me up. I'll send you this. Save you some looking around. The fact is, this came without any saw guards whatsoever. Fortunately, the newer saw guards that we have will fit the older machines. This is the lower saw guard. It fits right here, just like that. What doesn't fit, because of the table inserts, is the upper saw guard. The upper saw guard needs to go. The slot needs to be longer, and it goes down through the slot. If you're planning on upgrading the tables, no problem. If not, you'll have to either look around for one of the older saw guard systems or purchase a new one completely from us. Okay, let's take that off. Sanding. The thing that comes with the Shopsmith that allows you to do sanding is the sanding disc. On the older machines, these were cast out of aluminum and nicely balanced. You can still find these for $1 or $2 in flea markets, and I like to pick them up because it's a great way to get more sanding discs for cheap. And also, these make wonderful faceplates for really big stock. But the newer ones are made out of steel. They're both decent, but you'll want at least one of them. When it comes to you in this condition, remember, you have to remove, absolutely, positively have to remove all the acumpunky that is on this thing before it will work. That's got to be a clean surface. So it looks like we're going to have to just about boil this in MEK to get it clean again. Drilling. Obviously, the thing that you need to drill with is a chuck. And the Mark V should come with one. And the older ones came with a really nice Jacobs chuck, which this happens to be. It works really cleanly, even after all these years. This is one of those parts that if you can get, you don't want to replace this. This is really a nice chuck. What this didn't come with, however, is the chuck key. And so at this present time, it's absolutely useless. However, our newer chuck keys do fit the old Jacobs chuck, so we can help out in that way. Where am I? Okay, we've done sanding. Oh, lathe turning. Okay, you should get, in addition to the rest of the stuff, a tailstock. The tailstock fits in the base of the Mark V, right here where I right now have the extension table. That holds a live center or a dead center. The Shopsmith should come with a dead center. If not, don't worry. You want a live center anyway. And they're not too expensive. The tailstocks, however, are not cheap. The tailstocks should have two stock colors on the ends, so that you can adjust the height where they sit in the base. If they don't, that's par for the course. These are favorite targets of shop gremlins. In addition to the tailstock, you should also have a tool rest. On which a few of our Shopsmiths came with a very basic set of chisels, but not many. The tool rest, however, is a must. The table system, you want to make sure that you have both a miter gauge and a fence. The miter gauge is a non-standard. It has a non-standard bar. Most of the slots that are out there are 3/4 of an inch wide. Ours happen to be 11/16, so you can't just go get a miter gauge at a flea market and expect it to work. you'll either have to get one from us or find another Shopsmith miter gauge. This is a good old one, and it comes with a hold down, which is really nice. This is this old style hold down. I love these. The fence that clamps on the table this is the older style fence. Now, we made a lot of improvements to these fences over the years. In 1985, when we came out with the Model 510, we made the fence a little wider and put a groove down the top so that you could use our sliding T-nuts to mount different jigs and fixtures. That was a good improvement. That was really dynamite improvement. In 1999, we came out with what we called the Pro Fence system. You see it here being covered by my overhead fence, but my overhead fence is only there because we added slots all the way around this Pro Fence. In addition, we closed the bottom to make this a true torsion box, so this remains straight as a die. This old fence that you can see here is open at the bottom, and you can actually collapse this if you squeeze enough. So another thing that you might want to consider, if you're going to go for the new table, you'll want the newer fence also. The new fence is good, and so is the new miter gauge for a different reason. When we went to the 520 table, we began to machine T-slots instead of just regular miter gauge slots. They had little flanges on the side, and these fit washers and sliding T-nuts and held them down. The nice thing about that is I can demonstrate right here with this. If you take this miter gauge and you have to saw a really big piece of wood, you're going to have to draw the miter gauge out past the edge of the table, and as you can see, it's overbalanced now. It tends to tip off the edge. With the T-slot, we put a washer right here, and you can take that miter gauge all the way out to here, and it won't overbalance. That washer will hold it in place. So a table system with T-slots is a nice thing to have. In addition to that, there is a support accessory. All of our Shopsmiths came with an extension table so that you could extend the amount of support that you needed for large jobs. This is the standard extension cable that came with the machine up until 1985, when we went to this, which is longer and wider. Now, the nice thing about this one is that you'll notice that the piece of hardware here that we call the dog bone has been unchanged and is, let me tilt this up so you can see the dog bones. See that? They're exactly the same, although one's a little shinier than the other. You don't have to buy the complete extension table. You can just buy the bigger, wider piece and mount it to your old dog bone. Nice thing to know. Finally, safety equipment. Prior to 1984, we used to send out our Mark V's with eye protection, plastic goggles that would cause your eyeballs to sweat. Those have been augmented, and now we also send out push stick, featherboard, push block, and a fence straddler. All of these are extremely useful, and 3 out of the 4 of them will fit the oldest Mark V. This featherboard fits right in these old slots. The fence straddler is made so that it only fits the new Pro Fence, so it's not as useful, but it's a nice thing to have nonetheless. And you can still use it; it just won't slide without a little wobble. The I would, if I were getting one of these, I would, and I didn't work here, I would invest in this system first off. These are nice things to have around, real finger savers. And then, last but not least, your Mark V should come with one of these. 5/32" Allen wrench. In fact, different Mark V's came with several different wrenches, sometimes as many as 6 of them, but only one long one. Only one opens is the keys to the kingdom, the 5/36 Allen wrench, which makes it possible to change all the accessories and put this overgrown erector set together. If the one that normally comes with it has a single bend. This is what we give away for free right here. And these are nice. The length is nice. Believe me, you can put this machine together with one of the short Allen wrenches, but it's not an enjoyable experience. You really, after a while, want to invest in one of these and keep it where the gremlins can't get to it. That's it. If you're out there shopping, that's what I know to tell you to look for. I would ask you for this favor. I want to make that buying a used Mark V into a living document. That is a document that we will continue to massage and make better and better. Please, if you download that, take a look at it. Tell me what it doesn't have. What information should be on there. And I will continue to massage that to make that better and better for the next person that goes looking for a used Mark V. Have we got any questions out there?